Kumusta ka mo? Hi, it's Viktoria Vox. We often hear our elders say lines like, iba naging mga kabataan subong, or lines like, sang tiyempo ko amo ni, sang tiyempo ko amo na, as they express their frustrations on today's generation. To top that off, there's no denying that today's generation has bred a lot of independent thinkers and more outspoken individuals who don't fear questioning old traditions, not necessarily out of disrespect. Sometimes it's out of curiosity, other times it comes with a more efficient suggestion of doing things. But most of the time, those suggestions aren't met with open ears or minds. Instead, these alternative suggestions are met with lines like, but our way of doing things has stood the test of time. Tried and tested na ni. We've always done it this way. Ako na spoiled na kabataan, so mukha sabat-sabat na gidya. So, subong, istoryahan takit di kung ano ang mga pros and cons sa mga old traditions. Ano gid man bala ang mga dapat i-continue, kag ano gid man bala ang mga dapat i-update na. Okay, first, let's talk facts. Insakto nga ang panahon subong, tamaan na gid kay iba kaysa sa una. Insakto, madako gid man ang mga naambag sa mga mas tigulang sa aton, sa mga pribilehiyo nga may ara ta subong. Insakto gid man. While we're not denying that there are still methods that are still valid and effective, that is not always the case with every situation. A few weeks ago, I made a video about abusive tough love and firm parenting, and the comments were so interesting. Kaya sobra gid kay iba ang comments sa Instagram, kag sa Facebook, or sa YouTube. The comments on Instagram, majority of which came from the younger generations who represented the children who were raised with abusive tough love, crying out for help, or finally speaking up about the trauma the type of parenting caused them. Tapos sa Facebook naman, ang mga nag-comment, puro mga mas tigulang na ginadefend ang abusive tough love, mostly because they have cemented on this type of parenting. Ang iban payagani proud kaya ang argument kuno nila is amugid na nga kuno ang kultura sang Pilipino. That's a way to discipline children because it's tried and tested na kuno, therefore it is correct. Part of their argument also is that if you don't hurt them, you're not disciplining them. So is that the only way to discipline? Is to hurt them? And I think this is where the problem lies. It's in the assumption that the longer something has been done, the more correct it is, leaving as little to no room for change. It's the refusal to hear other suggestions and accept the possibility that there could be a better approach that causes no harm. It disqualifies the growth and progress that we've all been working so hard to achieve. Hindi bala amugid man na ang universal objective. Though iPhone lang na bala pero may ga-update ang iOS. And that's what allows it to keep up with the needs and the lifestyle of the people it caters to. It constantly upgrades and adapts. Kaya amo lang gid na ang solution to keep moving forward. Hindi tanan nga bag-o sa laa kag hindi tanan nga nakasanayan ta insakto. Different isn't always a bad thing. It could actually mean growth, and we should embrace that. If we're always stuck on what we are used to, how are we going to move forward? How are we going to grow? Imagine life without advancement. People will still be owned and be forced into slavery by other people. Women will still have no rights to vote, to own a business, to even choose their own name. Imagine living so stuck in the past that all we know are the terrors of dictatorship. Kung wala advancement, pustahan, tara, matagya akong sa stone age ay. The past plays such a huge role in our lives, and nobody's trying to erase that. But let's also learn to act with discernment. Filter what you see and hear, and subscribe to habits, culture, and values that are good for you and the people around you. Hindi po tikang gimpadako kang ginasupalpal ka ipasa mo man sa bata mo. If you think it did you well, then good for you. But you have to remember that who you are is totally different than your child. The personality or the way you handle pain and the way you handle trauma is totally different than how your child handles it. So don't compare how you handle that to your child. Kung disiplina lang gid man ang imo nga objective, damo pa the other ways to do it aside from violence. Communicate clearly. Ground them. Seek professional help. Imagine na bala, kung tanan ta ang solusyon sa tanan nga problemata pagiging bayolente. What a world that would be. Ari pa kitang isa ka example, tanan gid man nga mas magulang o kung mas tigulang sa aton intsakto perme. Gets ko gid na bala nga sa kultura sang Pilipino, taas gid man ang panulukan tas mga mas tigulang sa aton. Our language even proves that. It is painted with so much praises for the elderly. Most of us grew up with words like po, popo, and have grown accustomed to calling people ate, kuya, manang, mano, regardless if we're actually related to them or not. And a big part of it is because we are actually trained to look up to people who are older. Kadako nga parte sa pangabuhi ta ang utang na loob. Not that I agree with it, but it exists. Sa tamaan, kataas ang panulukan sa mga mas tigulang sa aton, wala ta na nanonotice nga ang mga mas bata, ginabali, wala ta na lang. And this is evident in home, at school, and even at work. Kung si nanay, si tatay, si lola, may ginambal, gina-question sang bata, gasabat-sabat ka na dayon. Hindi pwede nga may opinion, lagi siya nga iyaya. Tungod nga mas tigulang, sila insakto, nagit sila pirmi. Pag sila lang pirmi, aton sundon. Not everything they say are facts. Younger people do their due diligence and should be able to raise discrepancies when they see it. Pero sa pamilyang Pinoy, kung nag-object ka, bastos ka na dayon. Kaya nga magkasabat-sabat ka sa mas tigulang simo. The danger here is that we forget that mistakes aren't exclusive to the youth. Our elders know a lot, sure. But they are not perfect. Sa obra naman, what you bring to the table is highly associated with how old you are. Gina-assume nga kung mas tigulang ka, mas damo ka, experience, which isn't always the case. There are some who spent years climbing the corporate ladder, but that doesn't make them any better than the younger generation who excel in their jobs because they chose another career path. Ang basehan sang value dapat ara sa obra, wala sa edad. So yes, acknowledge tradition and culture, but learn to discern what isn't working anymore because the world changes, and so should we. Generational differences will always exist, and change will be constant. Back in the day, boomers were also rebellious because they did things differently. And now they're the parents, and their kids feel the same. It is less about who's wrong or right. It's more about the ability to shift. Generations are like fashion trends or music. It keeps changing. Some parts get spaced out, some make a comeback with a few updates like low-waist jeans. The point here is we should know by now that life will keep moving forward. People will keep changing. We should learn to adapt with the times. And if you want to keep the traditions that you're used to, because of personal preference, then sure. But let's drop the notion na porket mas tigulang, permi insakto. O porket mas tigulang, mas kabalo kaysa sa mas bata. Because let's be honest, that's not always the case. Ego na lang ginaya. Because in the long run, tightly holding on to traditions that no longer serve us does more harm than good to everyone. It handicaps older people to change and adapt to new traditions, and it undermines the progress the world has been fighting for generations. There is no point in adding division to our already divided world. Let's strive to think for ourselves. Let's learn to question traditions because that's a good way to grow. What people have done before should not be taken as an absolute truth. It is not gospel and it should never be. Kaya ang kakatabo, younger people who are scolded for asking questions and unsubscribing to cultural traditions that don't work get shamed for wanting to grow. Why? Let them learn and think for themselves. Hindi nga ikapipaste mo lang na bala kung anong nakasanayan mo. Change happens when people are brave enough to ask tough questions, offer different solutions, and follow through with consistent implementation. Di paano nabi matabo kung permita lang ginahusgahan ang values ng isa ka suggestion base sa kung ano ang edad ng tao nga gahatag sang suggestion. There are millions of ways to do things, so let's be okay in exploring those. If the only reason you're hesitant about trying something new is that we've always done it this way, then this is your sign to open your mind a bit more. Learn, adapt, grow, discern, Hindi tanan nga nadakuan ta kag nakasanayan ta insakto kag hindi tanan nga bag-o sala. Learn to discern what fits your personal values. Does this make you a better person? Is it true? Is this kind? Is this good for people? Be open to new ideas. Only then growth ever happen. Don't dismiss ideas just because they're from younger people. That age gap can be a real asset if you let it. So sit with them and learn from them. I understand that change can be scary, but if it's a change for good, there's really nothing to lose. It's time to make those necessary shifts and embrace the generational differences. The best thing you can contribute to the world is an empowered individual. Encourage the people around you to ask questions, suggest new ways of doing things, to lay out inhibitions or roadblocks they anticipate, because more heads working together is always better. Oo, iba na gid ang mga kabataan subong, but there's nothing wrong with that. When that difference encourages growth, the way you used to do things may be far from how they are today, but it doesn't make one better than the other. So instead of dismissing unfamiliar territories, discern which among them you can learn or benefit from. Be open to new ideas and challenge your pre-existing notions, and empower those around you, because that is the only way to move forward and to secure constant growth. This is the 24th episode of this Mega Therapy series, and if you like content such as this, please hit the like, the share, comment your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye!